Hey guys, so welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk a little bit about long-term versus short-term goals or different time scales. But before I do that, I want to remind you that if you get something from this talk, please give me a thumbs up, a heart, or a like, depending on what platform you're viewing this on. And if you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow me on Instagram, on Facebook. And then finally, if you feel moved to do so, these talks are supported by people like you who view them, who get value from them. And there's several ways that you can donate via PayPal, Venmo, and then finally becoming a Patreon or patron on Patreon, and donating an amount monthly on a regular basis. So all of those are ways that you can help me continue doing this. So let's get into the topic, long-term versus short-term goals or different time scales. So generally speaking, long-term goals don't feel very good in the short term. And this is something that I think everybody knows on some level, but it's an easy thing to forget. And so let's just take the example of, let's say, getting in shape. I want to get in shape. I decide I'm going to start going to the gym, that's how I'm going to get in shape. And I go one day and I try working out, and it doesn't feel very good. Afterwards, I also don't feel very good. And so I decide, well, that doesn't feel good, so I'm going to stop. Well, I'll never reach the long-term goal of getting in shape if I let that discomfort stop me. This is true of anything. Playing a musical instrument, graduating college. There are many, many things, even giving birth. There are many things that require us to experience a short-term or temporary discomfort for a longer-term goal. Now, this is especially true spiritually speaking. And yes, while we can really fall in love with our teacher or guru, we can love certain practices, we might enjoy or feel really blissful after doing certain things. To be really honest with you, a lot of stuff, a lot of growth spiritually requires us to deal with short-term discomfort, and maybe a lot of it. So I say short-term discomfort, I mean that discomfort might be there, and then you might get a break, and then there might be more of the same discomfort or another kind of discomfort. And my point is that this is just par for the course. Some of you watched the talk I gave back, I think it was in December, about the way of the cross or the dark night of the soul. And this can be thought of as almost like an update to that, or a reiteration of that point, that if we think spirituality is just all about fun and games and things like that, we're going to end up not continuing on the spiritual path. Now, whenever I talk like that, I need to be really clear, because my experience is that the payoff is well worth it. Again, there is a long-term goal, and the long-term goal is an unshakable peace, joy like you've never experienced before, what we could call bliss, being able to truly love for the first time in our lives unconditionally. Everyone loves to talk about unconditional love, and yet no one really knows how to practice that, or how to do that, or what that really looks like. And so spirituality allows us to get to a point where we can actually practice unconditional love. We can actually be that loving presence that we know we have the capacity to be ultimately. So long-term goals, probably more often than not, require us to experience short-term discomfort. The other thing can be, the flip side can be turned around, and the same thing can be said for things that feel good in the short term. So we do something that feels really good. Chocolate cake, right? Chocolate cake feels good. Is chocolate cake good for us? No. Drinking alcohol feels good short term. Is it good for us? No. I know there's been lots of studies that say things like red wine and yada yada yada, but I read a book recently, and the book basically said even though there are some benefits to drinking certain kinds of alcohol, on balance the negative side effects don't outweigh the positive. So if you do something that, yeah, it has a little bit of benefit for you, but it hurts you in the same time more, then we can't really call that good for us. So like an example, if I do a pose that helps my hip but injures my knee, well then that's not really helpful, is it? I haven't really done myself any favors doing that posture, right? Makes sense. That's kind of how it is with alcohol. If you enjoy it, I'm not judging you. I enjoy drinking alcohol for many years. Lately, it hasn't been as enjoyable because of some negative side effects in my body. And so I've just decided to give it up on balance. It isn't worth it. But again, no judgment. But don't make excuses. Don't pretend like you're doing something good for you when on balance you really aren't. So again, chocolate cake, alcohol, they're things that can feel really good in the short term, and we know longer term that they aren't really good for us. So this is important to understand that there are different time scales in which we operate. Yoga and spirituality operate on the long term, generally speaking. So we really need to understand that there are periods of time, there are practices, and there are things that we will face that will be very uncomfortable and that will really push us to our very limit. And we're doing this in the service of a greater good, a greater payoff, where we learn just how resilient we actually are. We learn our true nature, the unlimited capacity of our true nature to love. There really is no limit to the amount that we can love. And there's no limit to what we can endure. Our true nature is really indestructible. It cannot be destroyed or lessened in any way. And life will tend to put us through experiences that will show us this, that will test this. When our ego tells us, you can't do anymore, you're at your edge, you're done for. If we can hold on and have faith, we clearly see for ourselves that we're okay, that we've made it through. Again, we may not choose to have that experience. I'm not saying you're going to enjoy it. I'm not saying that you should seek out pain or discomfort. But as one of my teachers used to like to say, we do things in our yoga practice that will churn us, that will bring up the uncomfortable feelings, and we do that because life will churn us much more. And that's been absolutely accurate and true in my experience. As hard as a yoga pose is, and as much as we want to come out of that pose or a certain practice, we just want to stop, go into child pose or walk out, those practices train us to recognize that we can hold space for those experiences and more. And then when life brings us something that's challenging, we find that we're ready to rise to that challenge, that it isn't something that we can't handle. All right, everyone, so I'm going to encourage you to keep that in mind, to remember that the next time you're doing a class, a practice, or something that your teacher has given you, or life throws you a difficult situation, know that you can grow from that and you can learn from that. And you just have to remember the time scale in which spirituality works. So we want to think long-term and not short-term when it comes to spirituality. If we think too short-term spiritually, then we end up chasing different things, and we end up in what's sometimes called the spiritual marketplace, where we're just shopping for the best deal, right? The guru who makes us feel the best, the latest new practice or fad. And yes, we might feel good short term, but that's not going to lead to that long-term spiritual growth and payoff that allows us to feel that peace that really is unshakable, that equanimity, that joy. And from that, love comes forth naturally. We just want to share our love with others. We aren't looking for love from others. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Again, if you did, please give me the old thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment. All of those things help me out. And again, if you want to help contribute financially, check out the links below. Check out the Patreon page. All right. Thank you. Namaste.